You're listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast brought to you by DraftKings, America's #1 sportsbook app. All right, now joined by the man. If there could be a mayor of Tucson, a de facto mayor for just truth and being able to spit through everything, it would be the man that I'm talking to right now, Aaron, Mr. U of A Torres. Hello, Aaron. How you doing, buddy?
First of all, there's only one mayor in Tucson right now, and that's Tommy Lloyd, who continues to blow me away. But as you said, we in terms of everything that has happened in the past with Arizona that we can now permanently put in the past, I put myself at the top along with you, Jason Shear, some of the other guys and girls who cover the team, as people that have just done what a journalist is supposed to do, seek the truth and report it. We've done it, and I think we were largely vindicated this week.
All right, I want you to spike the football a lot here because, again, It's one thing for local people to do it right here, but you were a voice of national reason right here, and that can't be minimized, especially when so many different people are running off saying, you got to get rid of Sean Miller, you're paying Ayton. Let me ask you this. When this all broke, and what was kind of your first question mark where you're like, this doesn't quite all add up right here?
Well, I think honestly, Mike, not only do Arizona, I think the reason I've connected with Arizona fans is not only because I've defended the program through all this, but because I own the mistake that I made the night that the initial DeAndre Ayton report came out via ESPN. And listen, there's still a tweet that's up right now that I take full ownership for that said, Sean Miller will never coach another game of college basketball again. I told Sean Miller about that when I had him on my podcast a year ago. And, I think to your point, Mike, I do think there was probably a moment in time, probably about 30. And it's funny, right? Because even going through this on my own podcast throughout the last couple of days, you go back to that moment in time. And I think all of the national outlets, they were all trying to one up each other. And there was so much coming out. And frankly, so much that was proven over time to be untrue, not just on Arizona and Sean Miller, but a lot of other stuff. And so it was probably a day or two later. I mean, when DeAndre Ayton plays the next night at Oregon and Sean Miller, has that famous press conference 6, 7, 8 days later, whatever it is, even before that, I think probably 36 to 48 hours, you start to peel back the layers and say, some of this stuff doesn't add up. And I can't remember all of the details right now, but, obviously Christian Dawkins would have no reason to talk about DeAndre Ayton. He was never affiliated with him as a recruit. There were probably 2 or 3 things that were pretty inconsistent that if you really know the sport, or even if you don't know the sport, you start to realize as you listen to other people. And so I would say probably about 36 hours after that report, maybe even less than that, is when I started to say some of this stuff just doesn't add up.
Well, right. And I think you hit the nail on the head with the one-upping because, again, we're in a different era of journalism now than what you and I came up reading where, everything is a race to be first. Everything has to be out there. There aren't the copy editors out there that there were. Now, again, I'm not making any excuses for Schlabach here because at the end of the day, you just kept regurgitating a bad story in a different way. But it's just not what we grew up on. It's a totally different era, especially, too, where people can't admit that they're wrong on something. Like you said. I was the same way. I'll be honest. I remember exactly where I was when that news broke. And one of my favorite things to do on Twitter is to pretend that Kevin O'Neal's about to take every job just to see if somebody will bite and, say that. I said, well, I guess Kevin O'Neal's coming back to Arizona. But again, I was wrong. But at the end of the day, though, where are we at in journalism, though, when with something out? Because the IARP has cleared Sean Miller. He has no show cause. He has no suspension. As a matter of fact, they said he was very forthcoming with everything out there. Yeah. But that's not what people are going to remember, Aaron. All they're going to remember or a good percentage of them, that's the guy that paid DeAndre Ayton. And he probably got off on some technicality. No, he didn't get off on a technicality. This was investigated by the FBI and the IARP, and they both came back with nothing.
No, 1,000%. And this is why, I've defended Sean a little bit too. And I think even Arizona fans are kind of tired of my defense of Sean Miller at this point.
They're not. They're not.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. Because, I never, I never want to minimize what Tommy Lloyd is doing right now and not give him the credit for everything that he's doing on the court. But with Sean, that's exactly what it was listen, obviously there was stuff that happened. Book Richardson got what I believe to be a completely unfair 10-year show cause, but he did some stuff. Mark Phelps did some stuff. So I've never once, and I think you can go through the archives of my podcast, you can find my tweets. I've never said Sean Miller never did anything. Arizona basketball never did anything. But again, we can only go on the facts and information that we have. And this is why I have always very publicly defended Sean Miller is what are the links? What are the ties? What is this? What is that? And so that's why I've always been sympathetic. And I'm happy that he's landed on his feet. I'm happy that Arizona basketball has landed on its feet because to me, I just can't imagine going through life having the entire world think something of you that simply isn't true. Right. And you can sit here and say that it wouldn't affect you and this and that. You got to block out the noise. Coaches say stuff like that all the time. When the world thinks something of you that factually is not true, I can't even imagine what that, we would call it a scarlet letter, but imagine being branded with a scarlet letter that you didn't do. And so that's why I've always defended him. That's why I'm always really happy to talk about this because, and I said it on my own podcast on, I guess it would have been Friday morning, which is if this was your program, because, non-Arizona fans, Torres, you talk about this team too much, blah, 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 this and that. Well, guess what? If it was your program, you would want me to fight for your program the same way that I have fought for Arizona's program over the last couple of years. And it's for this reason. It's because if I was an Arizona fan, I would be frustrated. If I was Sean Miller, I would be frustrated. And Arizona deserves this moment now where maybe nobody outside of Arizona fans care. But everything that you guys and girls have been saying for the last 5 years has been proven to be correct.
All right, I want to get to where some of the inconsistencies get here in just a second, but got to pay the bills right here first. The DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX. All right, Aaron, you've been watching some Arizona basketball. I'll tell you this. But if you wanted to take the over on Tommy Lloyd's games, you're probably going to get some money. Now, again, it kind of catches up at some point because those lines get adjusted, but that's what it's there for. And during NBA season, you can put down $5 and you can get $200 in free plays if that team just wins straight up. That simple, that easy. Take the Bucks against a bad team. Check out the show notes and the link in the description. 21 and up, Arizona only. Got a gambling problem? Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. And Four Peaks, the official brew of PHNX Sports. Check it out at their Tempe location or down here when we have our watch parties at Tap and Bottle for all the away Arizona men's and women's basketball games. All right, Aaron, I think here's where a lot of people get confused, and I'm glad we got you on to be able to kind of unwrap this onion a little bit. Is that the verbiage? Unwrap this onion?
Unpeel, maybe?
Unpeel, yeah, unpeel. Sorry, my bad. Why has Kansas been essentially overlooked in the national media? Yes, Bill Self got a meaningless 4-game suspension, but you don't see the national people going at Kansas with 10% of what they went at Arizona with.
I'll be honest. I think it speaks to what you said a minute ago. I don't, there's a narrative that, Bill Self is quote unquote protected by the media. I don't know that I believe that. I just don't think that 80 to 90%, I don't know if that's, I just made up a number, but a significant portion of the people that talk about this stuff have done the homework, right? And so again, I think if I don't want to name names, but I think if you said to the average person, prior to this week, maybe they finally kind of gotten caught up on the facts. DeAndre and Sean Miller, what do you know? I think even people that cover the sport would say, well, we all saw the report about Sean Miller. And I don't think anybody knows that, like, Christian Dawkins talked about that in a court of law under oath. Right. Like, no, that never happened. And so I'm in the minority. I actually don't believe that there's like this, group that wants to cover up for Bill Self. I just don't think people have done the homework. And then again, from the Kansas perspective, there is no wiretap. You have to dig through the text. True. But through the text, you see him essentially arranging, hey, touch base with this guy at this time to take care of this at this moment. For at the time it was Silvio D'Souza. TJ Gassinola was the Adidas rep that worked with him. So I could go on and on. Like I said, I do think I'm probably in the minority. I don't think that this is a big, massive cover up for Bill Self. But it's been weird, though. It's been weird. And I can tell you, people that worked worked at Arizona at that time, I've had conversations with them of like, did Sean do something at some point that everybody, because like the coverage of them relative to Kansas, it just doesn't add up. It just doesn't.
Yeah. Again, let me ask you this, and this is one that I don't have an answer for, and you might not have an answer for either. I'm still curious though. If you were to switch both programs and you had the exact same information that Arizona had with Kansas and vice versa at Arizona, would Kansas have gotten hit like this with the national media? If Sean Miller was coaching at Kansas with all the stuff that came out?
Here's the better question, right? Mm-hmm. Because Bill Self is and was even at that time such a big name, does an editor rush out a story linking Bill Self $100,000 to the highest paid recruit? Or do they, to your point, vet it and edit it and make sure, hey, we got to have this is Bill freaking Self. This is one of the kingpins. Well, I don't know. What I do know is you're right. If it was just the same facts, same case, same this, same that, then yes, I think to your point, I don't think Arizona would, I don't think they would have been covered as maliciously, or Kansas wouldn't have been covered as maliciously as Arizona was given the circumstances. But I even wonder, again, the quote unquote smoking gun that they supposedly had on Sean Miller that they never had, to your point, does that even get out if the name is Bill Self? Because when you run that with Bill Self, that is, Bill Self is no disrespect to Sean Miller, but he's probably one of the he's one of the 3, 4, 5 guys that everybody knows. It's not only a college basketball story at that point. It probably leads First Take at that point, or it's on First Take at that point. It's on Skip and Shannon at that point. I don't know that Sean Miller's name does that. And so I guess that probably answers your question of, is that even a report that gets out without more thorough vetting, if the name is Bill Self instead of Sean Miller?
I get asked all the time, what is Sean Miller's legacy here? And you know what I've kind of come to this conclusion. I believe his legacy is this. Yes, he didn't get to a Final Four, but he made Arizona a 2-coach school. And that is a massive thing. And you and I have talked about that before, where you look at the Marylands, the UNLVs, the Georgetowns. Those are all, when a prospective coach is looking at that, you start wondering, well, is it really that good of a job, or was it because Jerry Tarkanian made it, or that Gary Williams made that job? In Arizona now, you've had 2 coaches that have won at the highest level. Granted, I know didn't make a Final Four, but had #1 teams and whatnot. That to me is, I think, what people are going to look back on. And quite frankly, with what he left at Arizona, with Ben Mathurin, with Christian Coloco, with Julius Tabellas, Kirk Kriisa, I can keep going. I think history in Tucson will actually be pretty kind to Sean Miller, to be honest with you. And that generally doesn't happen in these type of situations.
Oh, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt. And I don't think even current history, I mean, Sean talked about it on my podcast, is he stayed in Tucson after he got let go. And I mean, how often does that happen in a situation like that? And I think, again, it was partly because the Arizona fans were so defending of him, but he said, I have nothing but great things to say about Arizona fans. Now, to your point, historically, I think it's a great point, right? Because, and the other thing too, really quick before we get back to that, and I think you and I might have talked about it. I know that Sean and I talked about it on my show, was, I think it's easy now to just say Arizona, two coach school, all that. I think what's easy to forget, the circumstances with which he took over Arizona. What was it, Mike? 4 coaches in 4 years, 3 coaches in 3 years, something like that. I mean, I know your boy Kevin O'Neill, you just brought him up a minute ago.
Russ Pennell, Kevin O'Neill, and Mike Dunlap was a good name to coach there for a second before Russ Pennell took it. So you had 4 coaches. Sean Miller was your 4th coach in 4 years.
Exactly. And so, I think, like you said, you put the wrong guy in place and he fizzles out in 3 years. And he'll even say, if the USC Tim Floyd thing doesn't happen and I don't get Derek Williams, I don't know where I am. So he was very deferential to the guys that came with him early on in the process. But to your point, what is Arizona right now? Is it as appealing to Tommy Lloyd, where, I still go back to Tommy Lloyd's introductory press conference where he said, I've turned down a lot of opportunities. Arizona was one that not only could I not turn down, Mark Few wasn't going to let me turn it down. I mean, he tells the story of when he told Mark Few, and Mark Few said, you got to take that one. And so I agree with you. I think, history when you win at the level that Sean did, you didn't win a championship, you didn't go to a Final Four. But I say this all the time about coaches that bring that type of success to a school. In the moment when he was fired, when he was let go, I know there might have been whatever, but I guarantee you there's going to be a 15, 20, 25-year anniversary of one of his teams or many of his teams. And when he walks out of that tunnel, he's going to get a huge ovation at McHale Center. And I think now, especially now that it's done, and Arizona fans don't have to worry about what is our future. As a matter of fact, our future is in great hands, right, not only because of the IARP ruling, but because of who replaced Sean Miller. I think they're going to be very appreciative of really two things, Mike. Let me even again, something that Sean said. He had to rebuild that thing twice. He had to rebuild it, from the four coaches in 4 years. Then he had to rebuild it after the initial wave of sanctions when Sharif O'Neal decommitted. I think was Bol maybe committed at that point. I don't remember.
But he was in the bag. He was in the bag. Pardon the pun, right there.
Yeah. No. And so, and he said, and by the way, think about what he did. To your point, of brings in the class with Josh Green, Nico Mannion, Zeke Naji, and then brings in Christian Coloco, and then brings up the follow-up class with Mathurin, Dalen Terry, etc. And so, I think that's part of it too, is not only was it there the success, but you can criticize Sean Miller for whatever you want, but he left a foundation for Tommy Lloyd to pick up right where he left off and maybe even take it to a level that he couldn't. And I think Arizona fans need to be forever grateful for that. Because, by the way, imagine if Tommy Lloyd takes over a program where he's got to replace 11 players. As great as Tommy Lloyd I think he is, that's a lot different than inheriting what he did and then building upon it with guys like Ballo, Pella Larson, guys that he's brought.
Right, guys that you're kind of bringing in on the fringes where you've already got that core of Mathurin, of Tabellis, of Dalen Terry, Christian Coloco, etc. I want to ask you now a little bit about their playing style, but Game Time, here's the deal. The official ticketing app, you can get on Game Time, and let's just say that you want to go to a game that Aaron Torres is at, but you find out last second where Aaron's at. You go to Game Time, click on the link in the description. You can get over 60% off many times last second. It's great for procrastinators out there. Check it out. Game Time, again, 60% off. Can get to sporting events. You name it, they got it. Check out the link in the description. And more furniture, MOR furniture. Redone the entire PHNX studios. Looks absolutely fantastic. Give it a look at morfurniture.com. All right, when Tommy Lloyd took over, I always, you grew up watching Jim Calhoun. I grew up watching. I'm going to let you get some UConn shine in here in a little bit too. But
sure.
Lute Olson was a fast-paced. A lot of coaches say they're going to play fast, but they really don't. At Arizona, sure. Lute Olson, you got up and down, and his goal, if he had better teams than you, was to embarrass you. Tommy Lloyd said something that I found very interesting when he took over. He said, we're going to run. He said, not just because it makes me sound cool or it sounds like it's the best way to get recruits. It's because it's the best way to win, I believe, around here. And, man, he has been a man of his word on this. I mean, this is the offenses that you watch, how fast-paced they are, how he is able to develop everybody into a certain role has really been a sight to behold there, Aaron. Aaron, I think you froze. All right, well, I'll keep going here. Hopefully Aaron unfreezes here in a second. Aaron, if you want, maybe remove and then just bring yourself right back in. Here we go. Let's try this again. Remove, add. Here we go. Now let's see where we're at. All right, well, we got to freeze on Aaron's part. But you know what Aaron was saying, though, and we'll try to get him. Aaron, just try to hop back on here real quick. But I think the thing that Aaron was talking about, though, is just, how again, I'm texting Aaron. Yeah, real quick. Hold on just a second. I got you, Aaron. I think the thing that's fascinating, though, about Arizona is that you've got to find out where exactly, this team, can you win at the highest level? Can you do this? Can you do, with this style? And I'm curious to see what Aaron has to say. Texting him the link again. All right. He should be hop back in here in just a second. Sorry about that. But, he's spot on. And that's the reason that we've had him on, is because he knows exactly what's going on. As a national media sort, there are so many people that just jump to conclusions, and they didn't really do what they should do as real journalists. And that's unfortunate. I'll try to get some reads out of here real quick. We got Aaron Torres back in here, my man. You're good, dude.
Every time there's always some sort of technical difficulty.
Yep.
I appreciate you, man. Do your reads. I apologize.
No, you're good, man.
And I'm on the computer. If something goes wrong on the computer, I got way bigger problems than the AZ Wildcats podcast. I can tell you that much.
Okay, real quick, Tap and Bottle, the official watch parties of PHNX are down at Tap and Bottle downtown. We watch everything there. Arizona men's, women's basketball games. Scott and Rebecca do a great job. Got 4 Peaks on tap down there as well. Come check it out. We'd love to see you down there, Tap and Bottle downtown. All right, Aaron, what is about watching Tommy Lloyd and the way that he gets up and down the court? It's really something to behold, the efficiency and just the manner in which he's able to develop guys. You get players people all the time that just look at stars. Or I'll give you a perfect example. Keon Brooks, a transfer from Kentucky last year that ended up at Washington. A lot of people were bummed when Arizona didn't get him. They end up with Cedric Henderson, who's kind of the 6th man and has been a perfect fit. Lloyd just kind of knows the right people to bring in at the right times and how to make all of this work there, Aaron.
Well, you use one word in that, which I think is the key word, and that is the word development. I'm blown away, man, because, listen, last year you can kind of talk it. You could talk yourself into, Ben Mathurin. I mean, he would have been a pro no matter who was the head coach and all the pieces around him, whatever. But this year, and by the way, Dalen Terry definitely got better. Tubelis got better. Baulo got better from his Gonzaga days. Coloco certainly got better. But you could talk yourself into how much of it was Tommy Lloyd and his staff. And by the way, Tommy even said that in the offseason. He said, I remember reading an interview with him where they asked him, what is the biggest question about Arizona this year? He said, it's me. I got to prove myself. I walked into a very good situation. And so what's so impressive to me about this Tommy Lloyd situation is you look back to last year, the guys that are back this year, every single one of them's gotten better. Like Umar Balo is obviously the most improved player in college basketball. Tubelis, I don't know if there was some injury stuff or whatever late in the year, but he does not look like the player today that he did to end the season last year. Obviously, Kerr has taken his game to another level as well. So that's what stands out, because that was the key component that made Gonzaga over the last 15 years, is that their guys were always getting better within the system. And now I'm just going to say it. And I've said it before on my show. I haven't done the official, this is my definitive take. I think we got to start asking if Tommy Lloyd was the brains behind the operation at Gonzaga, because Gonzaga has not looked like Gonzaga the last year and a half. This year, if Drew Timme decides to go pro, they're probably a tournament team, but I think we're talking, fringes of the tournament.
You're talking 9 seed, 10 seed, something like that, Aaron.
So you have one program that for 15 years was all about development. Everybody gets better, European style, European recruiting, whatever. And now Tommy Lloyd's at Arizona, and you have fast-paced development, European style, European players, international recruiting, whatever. What's Gonzaga right now? It's a bunch of dudes that aren't really that much better than last year. They have 0 international players right now. Then they do have an Australian kid committed for 2023, 2024. I'm not saying, but I am kind of saying, I'm starting to think that he was maybe the brains behind the operation up there.
I would agree with that. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit too about just kind of the front court, because I believe Arizona, when you look at the center and the power forward position, you're combining for 38 points and 18 rebounds between 2 guys. You generally don't see that in college basketball. And that really has been kind of the margin for error that Arizona has going into almost every single game. Now, listen, they're not as good on the perimeter as they were last year. You don't lose Ben Mathurin and Dalen Terry, and with all due respect, replace it with Courtney Ramey and Pella Larson and get better. Solid, but not those type of players. But they go into every single game with an advantage up, down low, and they've exerted that against the best teams in the country when they played Indiana. And I still believe Creighton at the end of the year is going to be a good team.
Yeah.
When they played Creighton, those guys dominated, and I would expect more of the same against Tennessee. Not saying that they'll win, but I would expect them to dominate against Tennessee as well.
It's a 1-2 punch nobody has an answer for. I mean, and I know you want to ask me about my Huskies. I mean, maybe UConn is the answer, but
I let in for that. I let in with that exact reason. You do it.
Well, they don't play the two guys, big guys together very normally. And so, no, it's just the way that, and it's so cool too, because what's especially cool about it, it speaks to maybe the skill set of Tubelis and Ballo, honestly, is that you'd think you play two guys 6'11", most of them 6'11" or bigger, most of them probably, they're better 5 feet in than they are from outside. You would think that it would limit the flow of the offense, the movement, the spacing, the passing, the dribbling, the cutting, and it doesn't. And so that's what I think makes Arizona so tough, is we've seen plenty of teams in college basketball that have two good big guys, but it's kind of, clog the paint. This is, by the way, super random, but this is the argument at Kentucky, or it certainly was last year. You mentioned Keon Brooks. He was kind of a 5 feet in from the basket guy, and you couldn't play him with Oscar Tshiebwe. Kentucky, because of how they play, who can play with Oscar Tshiebwe is very limited. And so that's what to me is most impressive about the Arizona thing, is that you have these two great big men. They are both pretty good close to the basket, but it doesn't stop them from doing what needs to be done from, everybody else on the court and from style of a play perspective. So to me, that's been the most impressive part. Obviously, as I know I said it, but Oumar Ballo, to me, I don't think there's any question the most improved player in college basketball. And I think it's what makes Arizona so tough, is they not only put up a lot of points, but they can beat you so many different ways.
I thought one of my big concerns going into the season was Kerr Kriisa. Now, again, it wasn't a huge concern, because I've seen Kerr was the epitome of one of those guys that could go 3 of 15, but when there was a big shot to be had, he took it with confidence and many times made it. And you can't fake that. You either have that or you don't. But we would always hear about, well, he's a really good shooter, but the percentages just never showed. Like 33% from 3, 34% from the field. Aaron, all I wanted was 40% from both this year and deal with that. Not only is he doing that, he's dishing out 7.5 assists per game. I'm really excited to see what he looks like against Tennessee, a team that's going to be pressuring, that's got some quick physical guards that, Arizona had some trouble with last year. I'm curious to see how he looks, and Courtney Ramey in that situation. No
doubt. I mean, Tennessee is a really solid defensive team. Now, again, they haven't played a team, obviously, with the dynamic offensive, talent that Arizona has had. But listen, I do still think Kerr is, question's not the right word, but if there's kind of something you can kind of punch in the Arizona thing, it's, can he create enough off of the dribble, with great defense? And so to your point, like, this is a great weekend for him to show it. And this is why you play these games in December, especially with the way the Pac-12 is looking this year. But,
no
this is why
joke.
you play what's that?
I said, no joke, man. Gosh.
Yeah, no. And so this is why you play big games in December, is you play different teams from different parts of the country, different styles, because at some point you're going to face a team like Tennessee in the NCAA tournament, or a team like Creighton, who I know they played in November, but you get the point, a team like Indiana. So I'm with you. I've been impressed with his growth as well. I've been impressed with his, never lacking for confidence. I know that was not necessarily a problem last year either.
Right.
But I'm so excited to watch this game on Saturday, because I think it's such a cool clash of styles, with obviously the really strong defensive presence from Tennessee. Arizona's better defensively than people give them credit for, but obviously they make their hay on the offensive end.
All right, he's Aaron Torres, host of Fox Sports Radio, plus the Aaron Torres pod. Aaron, where can they find all of your information? Because again, Tucson, anybody that's in Tucson that isn't following would like to definitely know where they can find all of your stuff as the de facto mayor of Tucson.
Sure. I'm Tommy Lloyd's co-mayor. Tommy Lloyd is the mayor. Let's not.
All right, fair enough.
So no. At Aaron_Torres on Twitter is where most of all my content goes out. If you are on Twitter, we do have I have team specific pages that are, run by fans, and I do hop in and share my own content, but for the most part, it's just a news feed of Arizona. So if you don't like me, or you don't want to hear me talk about other teams, not only Aaron_Torres, but we have a Torres on Arizona page. It is run by a current Arizona student. And so we do a ton of stuff there, a lot of Arizona specific content and information, not just on basketball, but football, recruiting, this, that. And that page is growing. I think the news of the week helped that page grow quite a bit. But yeah, so those are the two places for sure, on social media where I share all my information. Well, all my content.
Aaron, you're the man, dude. I can't thank you enough, and I know I speak for Tucson and giving you a big salute right there. You got us through some hard times, my man.
Well, thank you. And yeah, to my Friday podcast, I talked a lot about this Arizona ordeal. But next time I get there, I'll let you know, because that brewery you were talking about sounds pretty good for all the Arizona watch parties. So I'll definitely.
Oh, it's on me, my man. I appreciate you, bro.
All right. Thank you, Mike. We'll talk soon.
For Aaron Torres, I'm Mike Luke. You've been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.